The waiting room was quiet, in the way hospitals always are, filled with a low hum of distant soft footsteps, and conversations kept just below normal volume. People sat in rows of chairs, some scrolling on their phones, others staring into space, and a few watching the reception desk with tired, hopeful eyes. Time felt slower here, stretched out between uncertainty and patience. Marcus walked in slowly, his posture steady but careful, like someone used to moving with purpose even when his body felt heavy. He was older now, his hair graying at the edges, his face lined with years of experience, but there was something about him that still carried quiet strength. He approached the front desk, holding a small folder in his hand. The receptionist barely looked up at first. "Name?" she asked quickly. "Marcus Carter," he replied calmly. She typed it into the system, her fingers moving quickly across the keyboard. "Take a seat. Someone will call you," she said without making eye contact. Marcus nodded slightly and stepped away, choosing a chair near the middle of the room. He sat down carefully, placing the folder on his lap. Around him, people shifted, sighed, and checked the clock every few minutes. It was a familiar environment, but something about today felt different. A few minutes passed, then 10, then 20. Patients who had arrived after him were being called first. A young man who walked in 15 minutes later was already being guided down the hallway by a nurse. A middle-aged woman who had just checked in was called within minutes. Marcus noticed. He always noticed, but he didn't say anything. He simply watched, his expression calm but thoughtful. Across the room, a nurse glanced toward him, then toward the reception desk. She leaned slightly closer to the receptionist and whispered something. The receptionist shrugged lightly, not even bothering to look in Marcus's direction. Time kept moving. 30 minutes, 40. The room slowly changed as new patients arrived and others left. But Marcus remained in the same seat, waiting. His patience wasn't passive. It was controlled, like he understood something deeper about the situation but chose not to react to it yet. Finally, he stood up and walked back to the desk. "Excuse me," he said politely. "I checked in a while ago. I just wanted to make sure everything is okay." The receptionist glanced up, slightly annoyed at being interrupted. "We're a bit busy right now," she replied. "You'll be called when it's your turn." Marcus nodded once. "I understand. I just noticed others who came after me have already been seen." Her expression tightened slightly. "Different cases have different priorities," she said. That answer sounded official, but it didn't feel honest. Marcus held her gaze for a moment, then nodded again. "All right." He returned to his seat. Another 10 minutes passed. Then, a doctor walked through the waiting area, scanning the room quickly before stopping near the desk. "Is Marcus Carter here?" he asked. Marcus stood up immediately. "Yes." The doctor looked at him briefly, then back at the receptionist. "Why hasn't he been taken in yet?" The receptionist hesitated. I thought he was a later appointment." The doctor's expression changed slightly. "No, he's supposed to be seen immediately." The room grew quieter, not silent, but aware. The doctor stepped closer to Marcus. "Sir, I'm sorry for the delay. Please come with me." Bafta picked up his folder and followed him down the hallway. As they walked, the doctor glanced at him again, studying his face more carefully this time. "I didn't expect you to be here already," the doctor said. Marcus gave a small nod. "I prefer to arrive early." They entered a private office instead of a standard examination room. That alone shifted the atmosphere. The doctor closed the door behind them and turned to face Marcus fully. "I want to apologize," he said. "That shouldn't have happened." Marcus set his folder on the desk calmly. "It happens more than you think." The doctor looked down briefly, then back up. "Not here," he said, but his voice lacked certainty. Marcus didn't challenge him. He simply opened the folder and slid a document across the desk. The doctor looked at it, then looked again. His expression changed instantly. Not confusion, recognition. "You're Dr. Marcus Carter?" he asked. Marcus nodded. The room shifted, completely. "I didn't realize," the doctor said quickly. "I've read your work. You trained under Dr. Williams, didn't you?" "Yes," Marcus replied. The doctor straightened his posture slightly, his respect now obvious. "You're the consultant they mentioned," he said. Marcus nodded again. "I'm here to review the hospital's patient experience protocols." A long pause followed. The doctor leaned back slightly, processing everything. "That means," he started, then stopped. Marcus finished the thought for him. "That means what happened out there matters." The doctor exhaled slowly. "Yes, it does." Marcus looked at him calmly. "I wasn't ignored because of scheduling." The doctor didn't respond, because he couldn't deny it. After a moment, he said quietly, "I'll address it immediately." Marcus shook his head slightly. "Not immediately." The doctor frowned. "What do you mean?" Marcus leaned back in his chair. "I want to see how things actually work, not how they look when people know they're being watched." The doctor understood. "You want the real picture." he said. Yes, Marcus replied. Another silence filled the room. But this one was different. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was purposeful. The doctor nodded slowly. Then you'll get it. Marcus closed the folder gently. Good, he said. Because this visit was never just about policies. It was about people, and the way they treated others when they thought it didn't matter. The doctor sat across from Marcus for a moment longer, clearly still processing what had just been revealed. The shift in his posture, his tone, even the way he held eye contact now spoke volumes. Respect had arrived, but it had arrived late, and both of them knew it. I'll make sure the team is aware, the doctor said carefully. Marcus shook his head slightly. No announcements, he replied. No changes just because I'm here. The doctor paused. You're asking us to continue as normal. I'm asking you to continue as real, Marcus said. That distinction mattered because normal could be staged, but real couldn't hide. The doctor nodded slowly. Understood. Maha stood up, picking up his folder again. I'd like to walk through the departments, he said. I'll have someone guide you, the doctor offered. Marcus gave a small, polite refusal. I'll find my way. That answer told the doctor everything he needed to know. This wasn't going to be a guided tour. This was going to be observation without warning. As Marcus stepped back into the hallway, the atmosphere felt different again. Not because anything had changed physically, but because now he had context behind what he had already experienced. The waiting room wasn't just a place of patience anymore. It was a reflection point. He walked past it again briefly, noticing the same receptionist, the same system, the same rhythm. She didn't look up this time. She didn't recognize him. To her, he was still just another patient. And that was exactly what Marcus wanted. He continued down the corridor, moving past examination rooms, nurses' stations, and open doorways where fragments of conversations floated out. He didn't interrupt. He didn't introduce himself. He simply observed. At one station, 2 nurses were discussing patient files, their voices low but hurried. Room 4 has been waiting again, one said. We'll get to it, the other replied quickly. Marcus slowed his steps slightly but didn't stop. The pattern was already becoming visible. Delays weren't random. They followed quiet decisions, subtle priorities, and sometimes unspoken biases. Further down the hall, he noticed a young black woman sitting outside an exam room, holding her arm carefully. Her expression showed discomfort, but also patience. She looked toward the nurse's station, then back down at her lap. Marcus approached her gently. How long have you been waiting? He asked. She looked up, slightly surprised but not alarmed. Almost an hour, she said. Did they give you an estimate? He asked. She shook her head. They just said someone would come. Marcus nodded. Does it feel urgent? She hesitated, then said honestly, it hurts more than when I came in. Marcus took that in quietly. Thank you, he said. She looked at him, confused for a moment. For what? For answering honestly, he replied. He moved on without explaining further. Because sometimes people didn't realize their experience mattered until someone treated it like it did. At the next station, a senior nurse was reviewing charts. She glanced up briefly as Marcus passed, her eyes lingering a second longer than necessary, but she didn't say anything. Marcus stopped near a wall, opening his folder again and making a note. His movements were calm, precise, like someone documenting something that was already understood but needed to be recorded. The hospital continued its rhythm around him. Staff moved, patients waited, decisions were made in quiet conversations that rarely reached the surface. After some time, Marcus returned to the doctor's office. The doctor stood as soon as he saw him. Well, he asked. Marcus set the folder down again. What you saw earlier wasn't an exception, he said. It's a pattern. The doctor's expression tightened. I was afraid you'd say that. Marcus nodded. It's not always intentional, he added. But that doesn't change the outcome. The doctor leaned against the desk, thinking, so what do we do? Marcus looked at him directly. You start by acknowledging it. The doctor didn't argue. All right, and then you train for awareness, Marcus continued. Not just procedures, awareness. But Doctor frowned slightly. We already do training. Technical training, Marcus said. This is different. There was a pause as that settled. People don't always realize how their assumptions influence their decisions, Marcus added. And in a place like this, those decisions matter more than anywhere else. The doctor nodded slowly. You're right. Marcus closed the folder. Respect shouldn't depend on perception, he said. It should be consistent. Another silence followed, but this one carried clarity. The doctor straightened his posture. I want to fix this, he said. Marcus met his eyes. Then don't focus on fixing moments. Focus on changing habits. That was harder, but it was also real. The doctor took a breath. Will you help us implement that? Marcus considered the question for a moment. Yes, he said, but only if it's taken seriously. It will be, the doctor replied. Marcus nodded once. As he turned to leave, the doctor spoke again. Before you go, I really am sorry for what happened earlier. Marcus paused at the door, then said calmly, It's not about me. The doctor understood. Because it never was. Marcus stepped back into the hallway, walking toward the exit. This time, as he passed the waiting area again, he noticed the young woman from earlier being called in finally. She stood up slowly, still holding her arm, and followed a nurse down the corridor. Marcus watched for a second, then continued walking. The receptionist looked up briefly as he approached the exit, but there was no recognition, no change in her expression. To her, he was still just another patient. And that was the point. Marcus stepped outside into the fresh air, the noise of the hospital fading behind him. The world outside moved at its usual pace, cars passing, people walking, life continuing without pause. But inside that building, something had shifted. Not visibly, not immediately, but enough. Because sometimes change doesn't start with a system, it starts with a moment. And whether people admit it or not, moments like that don't disappear. They stay, in memory, in behavior, in the way someone pauses just a second longer before making a decision next time. Marcus walked toward his car.com as always, because he knew something most people didn't. Real change isn't loud, it's quiet, and it begins the moment someone finally sees what they were missing all along.